Hi, I'm composer and sound designer Gary Hibner here from On Track Tuts, and welcome to this Composing Tools for Studio One. This course shows and explains the composer tools in Studio One that can help you improve and speed up your music composing. From version 4, Studio One added in some great features that focuses on the composer. Three big ones of these are the chord track, the harmonic editor, and the pattern editor. A big focus on this course will be on these new additions. Plus, we'll also explore some of the other features that it has that can help you with your composing. So, there'll be a look at the chord track, how it can detect, extract, and edit chord progressions. This feature is pivotal in helping you with your chord progressions, harmony, and arrangement ideas. Then, we'll explore the chord follow functions and how this uses the harmonic editor to reharmonize your parts so that all the tracks work with each other, such as chord substituting, transposing, and even key modulation. And this works with MIDI data and audio files. So no matter what type of files you're working with, this feature can help you. We'll also look at the new pattern editor and how working in a pattern step sequencer way can help your compositions. Then we'll finish off with looking at some of the other features like extracting note data with Melodyne and moving it to instrument tracks, and then also how to use the Arranger and Scratchpad features to build up your song ideas and arrangements. Requirements for this course is Studio One Pro version 4 or up. I highly recommend this version as it does give you the full spectrum of features for Studio One so that you can take your productions to the max. And a basic music theory understanding will help as it'll just give you a better understanding on some of the concepts that are explained in the course. So that gives you a brief outline on what to expect with this course. Now let's jump in. Before getting into the course, I'd like to first quickly show you my 4 favorite features in Studio One that I use for composing. First being the chord track and its chord substitution. You can have a chord progression, and then with the global chord track, if you want to change a chord, you can make a change, and with the tracks following the chord progression, they adjust accordingly. Now change the G to a B flat. And this works with MIDI data and audio events. And I'll show you in the course how it works with each of these. My next is the pattern editor. With this, you work in a step sequencer fashion, and this is great for building up your rhythm for drums. Create a pattern and then try out other patterns to test out how they sound. But another way you can use this is also for melodic patterns. You can, for example, create a bass part and then set it to follow the chord track, and it will adjust accordingly. So you can really speed up your composing workflow with this. Then I've been a big fan of Melodyne for a good couple of years, and its integration into Studio One is just awesome. What I like is using it to take an audio parts idea, then using Melodyne to analyze the audio and create pitch data. And then you can take this audio part and convert it to a MIDI track with the pitch data and then assign this to another instrument part. For example, maybe you have a melody idea that you record, and then you can extract the pitch data and assign it to your main synth lead. And then my final favorite feature for composing is the Scratchpad. Here you can sketch out different arrangement ideas for your songs and then test out how these different arrangements work within your track. Cool. So now that you have a taste of some of these features, let's dive in and take a look. So starting off with this video, I want to look at some of the new features that have been included in Studio One version 4 that really assist you as a composer. And starting off, let's take a look at how we create our beats and the tools that we can use. So a common way to start off a song is to start off with a drum loop or groove. This gives you a rhythm for your song, and then you can test out the chord progressions over this. In this course, I'm going to explore a synthwave song, and this has a pretty simple instrumentation. So don't worry too much about the style. I just wanted to give you a heads up on where I'm going with the song in the course. But you can use these same techniques in any style. So before in Studio One, you had the MIDI editor. So when you selected a MIDI part, it showed you the respective MIDI notes in this MIDI editor, where you have a piano roll, and on each key is a note or instrument note. So for example, these are my drums. C1 is the kick, and then D1 is the snare. But now incorporated into Studio One version 4 is the drum mode. And this is pretty cool. If you take a look at now how the drums are represented, it's going from top down, starting off with your kick and then going down the different instruments. You can click on each lane and it plays through the sounds. It shows you the notes assignment. So this kick is going to C1, then the snare is going to D1. Then on each part, you've got these sort of play triangles that are representing the hits of each note. So now when I play back, you've got these notes representing them. And this is just the kick and snare. I've got a hats part over here, but I'm going to go over this soon. And what's really nice is with drum parts, you're not too concerned about note length. You just want to know where that initial hit is. So by going into this drum editor, where exactly each note is for the drum part. Now let me just program in that part again. I'm going to take this away and then just draw in a part. And if I use the pen tool and just zoom up, you can see I can place these drum notes here. Now if I play back, let's just take those and make them a snare. So you can just simply click on a part. You'll see you've got this sort of drumstick icon that writes in the drum part. But if you hover over a recorded in part or programmed in part, it becomes the eraser tool. So it's very nice and quick and easy to program in drum parts. And I've got this kick here. So you can see it's very simple to go in and record in your drum parts. Whoops. There we go. See, pretty cool. So you've got the name callouts of your drum, the MIDI assignment, and then your triggers for each drum hit. And then obviously below here, you've got your CC lanes, which can show the velocity, modulation, pitch bend, or aftertouch, or even more if you program them in. And this is using the Impact Drum Machine. Now, what's important is this is a drum instrument. It's got names for each part, and these are represented quite nicely in the drum editor. Now, on this hats part, on this, I'm using a presence instrument. But the one downside is with the presence instrument, if you're going in and using drum sampled instruments, it doesn't show you their names. It's just showing you the pitch. This is showing two different hi-hat samples. So if you just expand this a bit more, maybe just pull this up. just solo it. Got different velocities. And then you can see it's got this other hits over here. So that's okay. That's just maybe one little area that's missing with the presence instrument. It's not calling the names that you might want. You're just going by MIDI note data. But you can go in and edit these names. If you just click on this wrench icon here, it shows you all the MIDI notes for the whole part. And then you can just double click over here and give it a name. So maybe, for example, this one is a closed hat. And then this one is an open hat. And you can just close this and you see the names more clearly. But it's still nice having these sort of triggered hits to see as opposed to note length. I find that you can really go in quite fast and program in your drums. And as I showed you, this works pretty well with the Impact Drum Machine, where it's actually pulling the names of the respective drum notes. So that's the sort of new change to the way that you can program in beats with Studio One version 4 and onwards. Now let's take a closer look at how to program in drums with the other new feature, which is the pattern editor, which allows you to step sequence in parts, which works great for percussion, but you can also use it with other types of instruments. Catch you in the next video. Now, another new big addition is the pattern editor. This basically allows you to work like a step sequencer in your productions. Let me show you how to insert a pattern. So this is your MIDI part. If you remove this, double click, it'll create an empty instrument MIDI part. But if you want to create a pattern part, then you go to the event menu, then down to insert pattern, or you can use the shortcut Shift Command P on the Mac or Shift Control P on the PC. So let's just use the shortcut. Now this inserts a pattern part. You can see it gives the name pattern, and you've got a slightly different looking editor here with a whole bunch of functions and operations. You can see you've got your 16-step mode and then your different instruments. But before jumping into this, I just want to show you one more extra shortcut that works pretty well with creating a pattern. As you can see, this created a pattern that was only 2 bars, but I want a pattern that goes over this area over here where my left and right locators are. With this, I'd have to go and change the boundary lines. But a better way is to hold down Option or Alt and double click, and then it creates a pattern the length that you want it. So that's just a great little shortcut. Now let's go in and see what we can do with this pattern editor. Now going by that drum beat that I had previously, I can quickly go in. Let's just see if we can get this part. And it's over there. And the same as you can see with the drum editor, if you hover over a part that's already been programmed in, it turns into the erase tool. Going back. And then we got another kick over here. Whoops. There we go. There we go. We got that drum pattern. And you can see that if you cycle over here, this is your 16 steps here, but it's actually repeating that part over the 4 bars. Take a look here. There's 1 bar, 16 steps, then it repeats again. So that's the beauty of a step sequencer. You're writing in a 16-step pattern, and then that is playing that whole pattern over how many bars you have set up in this part. If I extend this out, you can see that whole pattern plays across there. Now let's explore this editor just a little bit more and get into more detail on this. So like I showed you with the drum editor from the previous video, it picks up the naming convention of the impact instrument. Each note has a different velocity, so you can show the velocity lanes. Maybe you want this kick louder, and this one as well. You can also set an accent note. If you hold down Command or Control, you can see this changes to the accent. If you click on it, you'll notice that these are accent notes. So the accent will be at the velocity of 78, and then every other note will be at 60. So let's just undo that. And I want to just mute this part and go back to here and just draw in the hats over here. I know it's not going to sound exactly the same, but you'll see how the accents work. So you've got this hats pattern. And if you add in the accents, now take a look. It doesn't work so great. Let's maybe try another instrument. Take those out. You can sort of hear it. But maybe just to demonstrate this a bit more clearly, let's jump over to this hats part over here. I'm going to remove it, and just remember that it's on F-sharp 1 because this is using the presence instrument. And let's create a pattern, and that's F-sharp 1, which is going to be over here. Or here. Let's rather use this instrument and accent these notes. You can hear that more clearly. Cool. And as you've noticed also, you can just drag across and it draws in those notes. And if you drag back again, it removes them. Now, there's also another pretty cool thing, which is the probability factor. Now, over here, you can set a probability if a note's going to play. So if it's set at 100%, that note's always going to play. But if you sort of mess with these a bit, maybe use some different probability amounts, you can actually really get some interesting hat patterns or step sequencer patterns using this probability. So when it comes back around again, it looks at the probable amount of each note and decides if it's going to play. So it's different each time it comes around again on that pass. Then you've also got repeats, so you can set repeat amounts for notes. Okay, so that's going a bit off topic, but I just wanted to show you how these different lane parameters work within the step sequencer. Then you've also got different variations. And you can also create another variation. Click on this eye icon over here, and it brings up the variations. Click this plus sign, and that gives you a whole new lane where you can draw in another sort of hat pattern that you maybe want to try. So for example, let's say we want this every second note. And this brings me to another point. Over here, you've got some quick shortcuts. Here, you can draw in a note every fourth step, every second step, every step, clear it, or even shift. So if you got here, you can see it shifts the notes down. So it's just a great way of quickly doing something. So let's say you want to do every second step, then you want to change some of the velocities. Then you can test this out. So this is the one part. Now jump to variation 1. Or you can even jump to them up here. That's just an interesting way of working with your beats. You can build up different variations and test them out how they're working with the step sequencer part within your songs. Then you've also got some other options over here. Let's stick with variation 2 and look at this. You can set a swing amount. So if you're taking a listen to this, let me just set this in loop mode. You can add in some swings. You can't really hear that. Let's put in every part and take a listen. Then add some swing. You can gate the notes if they are longer notes, but these are hats. They aren't working. And then you can set the accent mounts over here. So for example, if we're doing those accents, here you can see you can adjust how much a note is accented. So this is by 12%, or you can go all the way up depending how you've got the velocity set. Maybe you can drag that velocity all the way down and you can see you've got a higher accent amount that you can do. And one other interesting thing I want to show you is the steps. You can set different steps for each lane. So let's just take this hats part out and just work with this pattern over here. The kick I want set at 16 steps, but maybe the crisp hats over here I want set at 16 triplets. So you can either set the global steps. Actually, let me go back a bit. You can either set the global steps. So this is giving 8 steps for your sequencer pattern. Or you can go all the way up to 64 steps. But what I really like is the customization per each lane. So this is at 16 steps. Here you can set it at triplets, 16th notes. And then maybe with another hat pattern, let's set this at 8 triplets. This is going to sound pretty weird, but let's check it out. Maybe that's a bit crazy. Let's take that out. That's the part that's sounding a bit much. Accent some notes. So you can really get some sort of experimental parts using these. I'm not saying that you're always going to need it, but I do like the customization that you can work in a step sequencer pattern and have different step allocations for each lane. Now, another important thing that I just want to show you, I'm just going to undo those changes. Let's just go all the way back to when we didn't have pattern mode. This is going back quite far. Okay, so here we've got our kick part that's just in your standard drum editor. Now, let's say that you want to use a pattern hi-hat. There's no reason you can't work with patterns over other MIDI parts as well. So let's say we write a pattern in, and this is going to be with a hat. Now you've got a pattern part over a MIDI part. Drag that pattern out. And then also with pattern parts, you can also convert them to MIDI. You've got your instrument parts, and you can convert the pattern to a part. So now it's taking that pattern part and converting it to MIDI. So that's just showing you how you can work with your drum editors and the pattern editors in step sequencer style to really build up your beats or percussion or any melodic instruments using this type of pattern mode. Now, I am going to show you a bit later in this course how you can also use patterns for melodic bits, but that covers it for now. I think that's pretty fine, just using pattern mode for percussive parts. Now, next, let's get into the chord track and how this can really help you with building up your chord progressions or altering your chord progressions.